Hey guys, hope this finds you well. Yeah, back at it again. This is a guided drawing course for, those who are sort of curious about the figure and exploring it through poses. I just want to say drawing has been a huge part of my life, and I really enjoy kind of the things that I've learned and the people that I've, encountered. Really great folks. And I just wanted to shed some light on the things that sort of I've understood through my process of drawing. So I guess moving forward, to set the stage for yourself, you can put on some tunes. You can also follow along in your sketchbook. Get some tea or some coffee and kind of like, set aside some time that you can kind of chill and follow along for 30, maybe 40 minutes. Also, you can always rewind or pause poses if you want to go back to them later to sort of like review or just draw what you see. I guess it is also important to note that my intention for this, and also to sort of just tell the people following along, this isn't about nice drawings per se. This is about the process of drawing. Obviously, eventually, we will be improving based on, our time with the figure and the things that we're learning as we move through this course. I just really want people who want to learn and kind of like grow and develop the skill set that they have, and just kind of like explore the figure. What is it now? The pose length will be about 5 minutes. This keeps kind of like an energetic pace, so we're not sort of locked down with very long poses. I guess let's get started. I'm going to be going over sort of some tutorial stuff in the beginning. If you've already seen this, you want to sort of skip through, you can totally do that. Go to the next pose. But for people who are kind of getting into drawing, this is sort of how I would see the figure when I'm approaching it. So this pose obviously is very, it's falling away into the distance. And I would approach this pose by encapsulating the pose sort of within a shape. This sort of helps with proportions and kind of setting the frame of all the things you're going to be working with. My next sort of thing that I try to nail down that I find is, more often than not, sometimes you can, sometimes you can't, but I would try to start with the hips, or if there's something that's kind of like an outlier, so maybe this foot, because this foot is, sits quite wide on the pose and on the page, so you could start either or. And with the hips, I usually start kind of with a circle, and then I try to find kind of like the direction of the pelvis. Sort of would draw an arrow. This would let me know kind of like the angle of the hips in regards to where they're pointing in the direction they're going. For the legs, I would draw kind of cylinders as we would go down. I'd use other indicators, landmarks, such as like, bony areas, like a knee I might draw as like a triangle, or you could also do a sphere, which helps fill out the form. And as we move kind of down, I'd obviously, try to follow it up with like a shape, maybe like a cylinder again, that would sort of fill out that form. With the feet, I would kind of approach as triangles. I find that seems to be somewhat consistent. I'd obviously take note of where they kind of hinge up to the lower shin area. And for the torso as well, and sort of like the center kind of spinal column and whatnot. For that, you could use a box. I find that is something that can kind of help to visualize kind of where everything is and for the forms and whatnot. I'd move on to the shoulders, which I'd use as like spheres. And then again, much like the legs, I'd probably drop in some cylinders and kind of like for the arms as well. So, and this leg here, sometimes with these poses, you can't see through the drawing, or you can't see through the pose. So what you have to do is kind of like draw through the form at times, just so you get a better indication of kind of like the angle in which things are hooking up. So that could be something that you might want to do also. So we'd have also another kind of like here, and then as we know, we don't really see her face as much here, and then obviously fill it in with hair. Pardon me. I do know, obviously, this isn't drawing, this is tracing, but this is sort of the block out that I would try to approach poses with moving forward. Yeah, for all the tools that I'm using, I will have them description below in the doobly-doo. So if you want to find out kind of what I'm using, and yeah, or if you have any questions, or things that you'd like to have maybe answered or whatnot, you can always yeah, drop me a line, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. But yeah, as of that, we shall continue. We shall begin. So I'm just going to get rid of this and this. Get on this page, and this is our first pose. So I'm going to try to frame this up. It's been really dry of recent. My sinuses are acting up a little bit. But yeah, so I think I set it up correctly. Yes. And then we're going to play here. So, all right, looking at this pose. So this pose looks like almost like an oval as well. So that's kind of like how I would maybe draw this, somewhat like an oval. Going back here, her head is here. Her chin is pointing in this direction. But yes, most importantly is where are her hips. So they are about here. And we can see right away that how her legs kind of hook into her hips. Don't forget the hamstrings or the musculature here. And as we come down to the knees, which are slightly coming up, fill those in with a circle. And then we have to note the angle in which that these legs are kind of coming up. So it'd be something like this, and these would be kind of arced triangles for more or less a better shape. And then we have her leg in the background. And then same kind of echoing the leg in the foreground, same kind of shapes. So this being the top of her head, these being her hips. So we're going to try to find her torso, which might be a little bit difficult. I think I may jump to her face just because I feel I can get a better grasp of the angles in which certain things are working, kind of pitching out this line here a little bit. So we have her head, again drawing through, and based on where her chin is, we have her shoulders, which are here, which are really reaching back. So we have this, they're reaching back to kind of like the mid leg here. So, and we have the knuckle line, which is kind of mirroring the line of the leg, and we have her shape kind of coming up like this. This also gives a better indication of the back of the ribs, but also note the shapes that we have in the center here, the positive and then the negative shape back here. That also kind of informs our drawing of how we should approach it. So there's many kind of like indicators and things that you can use to help kind of inform these shapes in which you're using. So you have this, her chest comes forward a little bit more, so something like this, and I'm glad I didn't go too far out on a limb here regarding her torso because it would have been very small. So we have posterior, we have her back up here, we have her kind of chest, her pectorals, and then we have her top kind of coming up like this. And we have this intercostal kind of muscle coming into the frame here. Regards to kind of her neck, pardon me, it's kind of more like this. We can have her mouth, her nose, and her eyes kind of like this, eyebrow kind of coming back here. So fill in the forms here like this, and her ear is like this, curving in. Ears can be somewhat precarious to draw, but I find sometimes you just gotta jump into maybe the general shape. It's kind of like a triangle-ish. And then obviously the organic forms in the center. So her jawline here. My nose is acting up. Pardon me, folks. So like this. Her hand. Sort of her knuckle lines here. And her thumb is coming down, reaching down, almost trying to get to the bottom of her leg. Sometimes my program stalls, but it's close, very close. All right, on to the next pose. So this pose, start here. Obviously we have the baseline coming across here. Triangle moving up to the head, and then sort of has falls down in that direction. So we can start kind of from her knee, which kind of get the idea of the length of her kind of leg, which you can almost use as a guide to fill in the rest of the form. We know that her knee is, her leg is about this long. Sorry, I'm just trying to, sometimes when you come across something and you're like, how does this work? It takes a little bit for your brain to sort of catch on. So, hand here, and then we have kind of like she is pushing up in space here. Her torso. So, based on that angle, I think her shoulder is about here, based on the distance from her her heel, which I'm using. And then we have her chest kind of here. This is kind of arcing in a little bit. And for her elbow, watching the kind of space, and her hand is on her toes, just about here. Knuckle line kind of coming across. We have her toes like this, her thumb coming down. So, yes, this is kind of like the shape more or less, kind of going for. We have these muscles that we're sort of trying to fill in. We're going across to her other arm, which is obviously pushing down and is a little bit further back, so we'll be more so kind of in the background-ish. Her arm isn't bent too much, but yeah, I'd sort of draw. Sometimes you can draw like a cylinder, or sometimes it's maybe some lines just to give the idea of the length. And then we have her chest kind of here in the this area. So after that we have her neck, and then we have her clavicle right here, which is also an important indicator, which can kind of give an idea of direction and form. It looks like her head is slightly tilted back, so I'll try to match that to a degree. We have her nose, we have her lips, and this is more of a profile kind of pose. Eye here, eye there, and we have her eyebrow, kind of like that, coming up. So we have the center line, sort of jumping all over here a little bit. I think that resembles a little bit more. And her other leg, we actually can't quite see at all. So her hair falling back. Kind of here we can just block in a shape for that. Can't forget her clavicle bones here. And then we have kind of her chest here. Just coming down here. I think that's kind of more or less like this. Then we have her intercostal muscles kind of here. Her hand might be a little bit forced up, but for sake of kind of what we're doing, I think it is relatively kind of okay. We have her arm here, coming up here. We have her shoulder, her tricep. So that's the other pose. I guess I could have dropped in the hand there. Yeah. So the next pose, which is, I think, let's see here, going down here, we're going up here, going across here, and we're coming kind of back down here, a little bit of a narrow base. I went straight up from the other way. So yeah, this one's going to be definitely challenging. So I think I'm going to try to start, actually, I'm going to start at the farthest kind of point here, her leg, because it is the outlier. It's always a balancer, you know, you have to be aware of kind of the pose a little bit, because you could draw off the page. If you have a little bit more space, I guess it makes it easier. So I'm just trying to find this angle here, which is getting kind of strange. So maybe I'll just drop this here. Hips are here, coming around like this, meeting up with the rest of the body. So if her knee is here, and this is arcing up, this is more or less her first leg. And this is more or less the angles that we're sort of working with. So then we know that her hip is here. It's coming across like this. This might actually push our shape a little bit. Chest here, sort of torso like this. We have her arm here. It's almost not going back. Oh, yeah, we have her hand kind of coming out like this. So, her other leg is kind of coming out here to match up. And then you can maybe draw like another line to sort of give the indication of where her knee should be, because it is a little bit smaller. It's going sort of back into the distance. So yeah, trying to lock down this pose is a little bit more difficult, but just have to keep looking and paying attention to kind of what things we can kind of get for free that help frame this up. So we have rib cage here, sort of going back. We have her pants here, sort of pushing out from the body a little bit. Angle here. So that's her shoulder. Clavicle is like right here. And her head. Neck is a little bit long. Her head like this. Just kind of like this. So her arm sort of travels behind her head. We have her lips. We have her nose. We have her eyes. I think the nose is kind of like a triangle. There's a bunch of little kind of like, I guess, shapes. The more you draw the face, yeah, the more familiar you become with some of the shapes. And they're sort of like proportional as well. So let's see here. This is arcing back a little bit. This is arcing here. We have this hand coming back behind her head. We have her hair kind of coming over top. Yes, so ears here. So there's one thing that could have helped this a little bit is there is a line economy sometimes which helps with details. Sometimes if you draw too many lines, you can kind of get lost. So that's generally the pose that we ended up with. This one looks very precarious, but let's say it's sort of diagonal. So we're going to go with a diagonal kind of box here with the sort of center line where her hips are here, let's say, more or less. And her hips are kind of on a tilt like this, that we can sort of see. And what we're going to do is find this leg here, and as it's sort of running down, this is the back of her leg. Indicate that with a circle. This is the back of her leg here, and is resting on her shoulder. There's a lot going on here. Her hand comes down like this. So we have this. We have, looks like the front of the knee, and then we have kind of moving back towards the calf area here. And then we have another plane, slightly coming towards camera, maybe a little bit less, here, and then we have the foot kind of coming out here. I'm going to have to zoom out to sort of fill all of this kind of in muscles underneath. So we get both legs here. And then we have her torso, which is almost parallel to the ground, which is just past her kind of knee here, but it's going up. So we have her other leg here, her knee here. We have it hooking into her hips up here, and kind of have her other calf just up here, the other leg, and I'm going to go with the classic kind of bent triangle, pads the foot here. So there's this, and we have her shoulder, bicep, arm supporting this very flexible and very strong pose. And we have the clavicle here, chest is kind of here. So yeah, some of these are a little bit daunting just because we don't know exactly. We can't move around the figure, which is what you can do kind of like in life drawing, but we're just trying to do the best that we can. You know, the face is facing this way and her chin is about like this, sort of underneath. And then we have her eye line. And I might put a kite on her face so that I can structure out kind of like where her nose might be, her lips are, and her eye is over here, eyebrow. Make sure that we don't go too wide on the face here. Her shoulder blade. I think that's her top, kind of coming in here. I think her top is like that. Ear. So this is a very complex pose, even though it looks sort of simple. It's definitely not. Making sure that her hips are more so shown here. Kind of reminds me of Chun-Li's bird kick, spinning kick that she does. Or breakdancer, which is another thing too, which requires incredible flexibility. You have these toes over here, like this. So, that is that pose. And our familiar pose, like this. I'm going to zoom back in. Alright, so I'm going to try to find the vanishing point line here. Draw a little bit less hard. Our foot in the foreground. And I think I may start the drawing here, because this is so close to frame, and then try to find the angle here. You know, her hips are tilted, like this. Sort of comes down, maybe even like a half ball. That could work as well. The leg over top, and coming back down, making sure that we are proportional. Her thigh is smaller because it's moving back in space. So for the leg bone here, the calf kind of coming up here, and the knee is kind of there. So this leg is very much like that. And then we know that we have the torso, so we have to find the angle in which the torso is sort of leaning back, which is about like this, like this. And we know that this leg underneath here, even though we can't see it, it looks like the knee is below this knee here. So it's coming down like this. The torso, posterior there, this here. The shape in the negative space looks a little bit squished. So sometimes, yeah, maybe slowing the drawing down a little bit can help with that. And yeah, sometimes, you know, as much planning as you want to do, sometimes you don't end up with a solid drawing. I think what happened is I tried to put this leg too much into the frame when it's actually not that much in the frame. And maybe it's also too high up. So yeah, sometimes it's good. It's good. You got to have a conversation about how this pose is going, and sometimes you have to good lesson to kind of work through that pose. You don't always get nice ones, and that is okay, because maybe that's a pose for another day that we can do. That is totally all right. Here looks like we have the shirt. Here, coming across here, the hair here, coming down. So maybe this pose shape here. So maybe sometimes what the thing I might learn is maybe it's good to sort of invest in the negative shape a little bit. I really do feel like I am definitely that back leg is very overworked, which is fine. So this is a potato. We've made a potato. I hope that you guys are not making potatoes. This is funny. So there we go. All right. That was a potato. All right. So this pose. So we have a square here. Looks like vertical square here that we're going to do. And then the foreground. So I think this is almost split 50-50. So I think I'm just going to make my pen maybe a little bit smaller. I'm going to draw this leg here. Sometimes straight lines, not perfectly straight, help as well with framing. So I didn't go the cylinder route, but I did go the route that would help me structure this out a little bit easier. Have the legs that comes down like this. I think that's the standing leg. Foot might be a little bit large. And then we have the leg that is reaching back. We know that her hip is here, reaching back to the wall, and it goes up. So we have a shape here, plugs right into this shape over here. The calf goes down. We can't see her knee because her hand is over top of it. And her foot is right up along the wall here. Her legs might be a little bit thinner than I've depicted, which is fine. So moving up the form of the belly to the torso, and then which is arcing back. This arc here. And we have her shoulders. Her shoulders, which are here, a little bit further away than the heel of the foot. So, again, drawing a line to the mid part here and to the knee. We have the hand here. We have the shoulder here. Fingers, the knuckle line here. Just drawing sort of more of a silhouette. And then we have her chest, which is a little bit further out. here. We have her neck here, and then we have her head, if I've done it right, resting a little bit along there, resting on her head. Maybe the foot comes down a little bit. So we have her ear here, jawline, for her mouth, this, her eye coming out like this to a degree, getting a little bit interesting there. We have this arm, this hand like this. And her hair is coming down here. So, kind of like this. Her chest is here. Her shirt is here, or her top, sorry. We have this. I think her leg could be a little bit longer there. So, maybe that's her eyebrow. So I think it's always good. Yeah, you just gotta make the best of a situation that might not be the best. So that's the pose there. And the next one here we have is this one. So we start with her head. And this is generally kind of like more or less a square coming down with her head and her torso kind of straight across here, and her shoulders. This is a little bit of a twinny pose, I guess, in regards to how she's holding herself up. Her eyeline, her nose, and as you know, her head is kind of tilted, maybe something more like that, looking towards the ground. So you're going to see the lineups of her nose and her lips kind of come a little bit closer together. That's how that works because of perspective. Here, chest. Okay, so her bicep is kind of her shoulder blades, what am I saying? Here, boom. Her head comes up a little bit more. Okay, so moving on. Her elbow here, her hand down here. Other arm here, make sure that the elbows line up like this. And it's just sort of looking, maybe these aren't silhouettes per se, but you're sort of looking at the outside kind of shape, contour of the arm, but it's the same sort of philosophy. Just instead of using cylinders, I'm sort of fast tracking that a little bit. So we have her leg coming out here. This is her knee. And it is passing over her sort of midline of the arm. Ankle coming in, coming across like this. And we have her hips kind of in the background like this, which her leg attaches into. And her foot is coming just behind the tricep area. We have her the foot here, she can sort of drop in, her toe here, and her other sort of toes and that leg is resting, comes out like this, it's resting on her tricep. Her tricep's doing a lot of work here. I'm just going to draw through the form to find where this hooks up. The knee over here, sort of indicate with a line here. So as we're moving down, her bicep is here, coming down. And these can sort of be kind of like facing towards camera, like a little bit like boxes. It's for structural sake because they're very much so close to the ground. That's her finger. This is her other finger. This is her other finger. Here. Her other finger, sort of like reverse check marks or something. Can't forget her knuckle or her wrist bone here. Sort of work in here. And her other finger here. Other finger. I'm going to move back up to her face though, because I think that's important. So her nose, we have her eyes, her eyebrows, her ears. So we have this sort of face like this. Eyes are more arced. We have the brow line. Sometimes my program crashes or stalls. And bun. Alright, so that's that pose. So this one is a kind of like a dome. Kind of like a dome pose. This is the angle here, coming across. It's like chest, coming back down. So I think that is generally what that looks like. So I'm going to go with the hips here. Just kind of like a half circle, like this. Pardon me. I'm sorry, that will be cut out. We have her knees here. We have her legs here. It's coming into her knee joint here. And we have her other leg in the background, just hooked up to the other side of her hip. And we have her back here, coming down her traps. I'm sort of going to make a choice here. I think her hips come up maybe a little bit longer, and sort of come in like that. Your top is here, might be a little bit wide. So we have flexation in the back, musculature, and the shoulder is sort of a little bit at the forefront here, which sort of comes down in a, make sure that we have the head, the sort of shoulder here coming down. We can anchor that with her elbow. And her hand sort of comes up about here. So this is where her hand is. Rotation. Here. We don't really see her face, so but we do see this ear. Just kind of, can't really spend a lot of time on an ear. Sort of the knuckle line here. We have the fingers here, sort of coming up like this, arms like this. So kind of like using her calf as like a form of stability. Their calf in the background. Like this. And we have the front of her leg like this. We have her shorts like this. So I could fill in the rest of these based off what we can see. Her jawline is right there. But the rest of her is a little bit difficult to sort of gauge and get a hold of here. Biceps here. So, and her feet are laying flat, which we can't quite see. So not a entirely eventful kind of pose, though extraordinarily difficult, but pose to sort of do. I wouldn't even attempt this. But yeah, it is a sort of a trying to make sure that these shapes and forms hook up the way that they should, the proper angles. Because sometimes, yeah, you can get away from yourself a little bit if you kind of ignore those things, like our potato drawing, my potato drawing. Yeah, so this one here. All right. So I'm going to go here, a little bit further away. So I see this as being kind of like this. This is the bottom, moving up to the top, and then sort of coming across like this. And we can start here because this is definitely the outlier leg. And there we go. The leg coming in like this. And coming down like this. So her hips are, it looks like this is the outside hip here, coming across. So I'm just going to try to mirror that as much as possible. This shape might be a little bit too small. So I'm going to come in a half circle around here. So a half circle, there's like a twist. Just kind of pitching down like this. So yeah, that's going to be a tough shape. But her leg, as we know, if we make a cylinder, hooks in right here. And comes down here. And lands about here. Ankle bone. The front foot. Big toe. So we have this interesting sort of pose here. Almost reminds me of a ballerina pose. And her torso is torquing back into space. So it's about here. The top of it angles like that. These muscles like this. And she is reaching back her shoulder to her leg. So the arm here. It's reaching to sort of her mid-calf, mid-supporting calf. Just kind of comes across. Finger like this, like that. So this looks like her bicep. She's very flexible in her arms. Yeah, this could almost look like a sort of a flip. I think this is a little bit further up. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff, interesting stuff going on in there. Her face coming here. Her hair obviously comes down to where the ground is. Very long hair. And then her arm kind of comes down over here. Looks like her finger is kind of like there. So her eye, I think, is there. So yeah, very interesting pose. This is a very, cool pose, I would say. Intercostal muscle here. Sort of this kind of pose. So you get sometimes, when you really kind of get in a groove. This pose is really neat. Bicep here. Bring it to the form. Program stalled. And then I think I may stop it here, folks. I will step through sort of the rest of these poses. This is getting a little bit late here for me, so you can sort of pause these as I go through them to do some of these poses. That's a nice pose from the top. Looks like that's the last one. So yeah, I guess I like that one. That one sort of turned out, was kind of nice. This one is really cool too. But yeah, like I think I like this one. The face is very interesting. There's a lot of nice things going on there too. But yeah, I think it's just kind of like keep plugging away. Even though sometimes the underlying shaping of what you're doing kind of doesn't line up, it's always good to have it as reference, because then even when you're laying in some of the anatomy, you do have it as a guide that can still help direct your pose. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope to see you again, and take care.